Look around at the world we live in today. I mean, we've got more wealth, more technology, and just way more convenience than at any point in human history, right? But here's the crazy part. Despite having literally everything right at our fingertips, so many of us are walking around feeling this profound sense of anxiety, just empty. Well, today, we're jumping straight into an explainer of some deeply fascinating source material that tackles this exact paradox, the absolute trap of our modern mechanical lives. We're going to dig into the philosophy of the highly controversial thinker Osho and figure out why checking off all those traditional boxes of success almost never leads to actual, genuine fulfillment.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Part 1, The Trap of Modern Life.
So, I really want you to think about this for a second. Why on earth are the most successful people out there still so incredibly unhappy? You know the drill. We grind away in these toxic corporate jobs just to pay off the next DMI. We endlessly scroll through social media, totally caught up in this digital rat race to prove to everyone else that we're doing great. But the source material highlights something really striking. Even when people reach the absolute pinnacle of success, I'm talking becoming billionaires or famous superstars, they still end up facing intense loneliness, crushing insecurity, and major stress.
And that brings us to the core issue, outer wealth versus inner emptiness. We've basically become master architects at accumulating material achievements. We can buy the massive house, get the fancy car, secure that super impressive job title. But here's the catch. The more we build up on the outside, the more we tend to feel this massive, echoing void on the inside. Osho's philosophy actually suggests that society completely programmed us to focus entirely on the external. So to fix this, we don't just need a tweak, we need a radical deprogramming.
Now, to really grasp this philosophy, we've got to look at Osho himself. The guy was an absolute master of challenging assumptions. Take the number 93. A journalist once sat down with him and tried to call him out on his massive, frankly insane wealth. The journalist basically pointed out that for a so-called spiritual guru, it was completely hypocritical to own 93 Rolls-Royces. And the interviewer was just totally shocked by Osho's response. Because Osho, he didn't apologize, not at all. He looked right back at the guy and said that actually, 93 wasn't enough. He wanted 365. Literally one for every single day of the year. He was making this incredibly bold, unapologetic point. You see, he wasn't a priest of poverty. He actually respected wealth and believed it absolutely should be enjoyed. But his ultimate punchline was that he knew, better than anybody else, that having 365 Rolls-Royces would never, ever cure inner suffering. Because once you finally have everything and you realize you still aren't happy, well, that is when the real journey actually begins. What's super interesting here is how this concept explains the very root of our suffering. It's the illusion of ownership. The source material presents this heavy but honestly brilliant thought experiment. Imagine a father coming back from his son's funeral, just absolutely shattered by grief. But then he discovers a biological secret. The child wasn't actually his. Instantly, while the sadness of losing a child obviously remains, that deep identity-shattering grief suddenly shifts. Why? The memories of the child haven't changed at all. The only thing that changed was the label of mine. Osho argues that we often don't actually love people or things. Our ego just loves the ownership. We cling to that label of mine, and that clinging ego is exactly what causes our pain.
Which brings us to part 2, deprogramming your ego.
To picture this, the texts share a really powerful parable. So there's a sage in a forest who takes pity on a tiny, defenseless rat and uses magic to turn it into a cat to protect it. But then a dog comes along and threatens the cat, so the sage turns it into a cheetah. And then he turns it into a fierce lion. But what does the lion do? It turns right around and attacks the very sage who saved it, forcing the sage to turn it back into a rat. This is such a brilliant visualization of the ego. We start small, right? We try to mask our inner feelings of inferiority by achieving something. But the ego has a totally insatiable appetite. It constantly escalates, from a rat to a lion, until the very monster we built to protect ourselves ends up destroying us from the inside out.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this. Comparison is the window to the ego. It's exactly how the ego demands more, regardless of your level of success. And the source text analyzes really neutrally across some massive high-profile figures. Take Napoleon, for example. Here's a man who literally conquered the world, but he was reportedly tormented by a massive complex over his height, all triggered by some British cartoons. Or look at the analysis of Donald Trump, a man who reached the absolute peak of global power by becoming US president twice, yet is cited as constantly comparing himself to Barack Obama over a Nobel Peace Prize. And look, It absolutely doesn't matter what your political leanings are. The psychological observation here is just that no matter the immense level of success, the ego always looks at someone else and demands more.
And this ego completely traps our potential. We're always told to think outside the box, but our desires are usually just shadows of our past. I mean, if Henry Ford had asked people what they wanted, they wouldn't have asked for a car. They would have just asked for a faster horse. In our own lives, we do the same thing. We chase things like a cousin's safe government job just because it's familiar to us. We're just wanting a faster horse. To truly innovate, to find genuine resonance in our lives and our careers, we have to step completely out of the box, like into a space where the box doesn't even exist anymore.
Moving on to part 3, the art of observing.
The texts share this beautiful 3,000-year-old Chinese story. Picture this. Imagine a man crossing a river in a really thick morning fog. Suddenly, out of nowhere, another boat violently rams right into his. The man is instantly furious. I mean, he is ready to scream, to curse, to physically fight the absolute idiot steering the other boat for this deliberate, deeply personal attack.
But then, the fog clears, and he sees the reality. The boat is empty. Instantly, all that blinding rage just vanishes. The physical damage to his boat is exactly the same, but the anger is completely gone, because there's literally no ego to fight against. In our daily lives, when someone cuts us off in traffic, or maybe snaps at us at work, we immediately give their boat a face. We just assume it's a personal attack against us. But the truth is, 99% of the time, the boat is empty. People are just lashing out because they're fighting their own unseen internal battles.
So how do we apply this? Well, Osho provides these exact, highly practical steps for processing our triggers. First, do not suppress the emotion. If you push down your anger at your boss, you're just going to take it out on your family later. Don't do it. Second, do not exaggerate it. Instead, just take a pause. Name the emotion. Literally tell yourself, okay, this is jealousy, or right, this is fear. And finally, just witness it. That 1 second gap between the trigger and your actual reaction, that is exactly where pure awareness lives. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate goal of that awareness. Think about it. If you put a spoonful of salts into a tiny cup of water, the water becomes terribly bitter and totally undrinkable. But if you take that exact same spoonful of salt and throw it into a vast, enormous lake, the lake doesn't change at all. Expanding your awareness acts exactly like the lake. It just effortlessly dilutes the sting of those external triggers. You don't ask for fewer problems. Instead, you expand your capacity to deal with them.
And that leads us to part 4, Zorba the Buddha.
So, what does this mean? Zorba represents the ultimate materialist, someone who drinks, dances, and just fully enjoys the physical world, while Buddha represents the silent, awakened, highly self-aware soul. And here's the kicker. The goal isn't to choose one over the other, it's to become both. The source points to modern figures to explain this, like the cricket legend Virat Kohli. He pushed to achieve absolute peak material success and massive global fame first, and then, having basically conquered the outside world, he turned his intense focus inward toward deep grounding meditation.
The message here is just incredibly empowering. Be a king on the outside and an emperor on the inside. Seriously, go out there and earn money. Enjoy your comforts, strive for massive success, buy the nice things, but do all of it with total, unwavering inner awareness. Do it knowing that these things are just tools for comfort and not the source of your actual identity or your happiness. By developing this inner emperor, you finally gain the actual power to escape what the source is called the factory system. Because right now, society demands efficiency over awareness, literally turning us into these mechanical cogs and corporate jobs that just completely drain our creativity. We're trapped by social media algorithms that, and former executives admit this, are meticulously designed to hack our minds and keep our thumbs endlessly scrolling. Self-awareness is literally the only tool that unplugs you from this matrix, allowing you to find work and a life that actually resonates with your soul.
Finally, part 5, Tasting the Strawberry. I want you to picture this truly harrowing scene. A man is running for his absolute life across a field, being chased by a ferocious lion. He reaches the edge of a steep, deep cliff and just leaps, grabbing onto a tiny, thin vine to save himself. But as he's hanging there holding on for dear life, he looks down into the ravine and sees a second, equally hungry lion waiting for him right at the bottom. And as if that wasn't terrifying enough, as he's dangling there, two mice suddenly appear, one black and one white. And they start slowly gnawing away at the very vine he is hanging from. The symbolism here is incredibly profound. The lions represent the unchangeable past behind us and the inevitable death waiting below us. The black and white mice, they represent time, literally day and night, just slowly but surely running out, chewing away at our lifeline. He is trapped in the ultimate nightmare. There's no way out. But then, looking at the cliff wall right next to his face, he spots a single, luscious red strawberry growing right out of the rock. Facing certain doom, with lions above and below him, and his time literally running out, the man reaches out with one free hand, plucks that sweet strawberry, pops it into his mouth, and just smiles at how absolutely delicious it tastes. This is the ultimate symbol of being completely, unapologetically alive in the present moment, despite all the total chaos surrounding us. Because the truth is, we are all hanging on that vine. Every single one of us is caught right between the past and the inevitable end, with our time just slowly ticking away. So I'm going to leave you with this final, powerful thought to consider about your own mechanical life. While you're hanging there, are you going to spend your limited time staring in absolute terror at the lions? Or will you reach out and taste the strawberry?